Hello, everyone, and welcome to Theologaming. With me here tonight is Reggie,
Hello.
Jacob,
Hey,
Adam,
good evening.
and Joel will probably show up sometime soon, but he's running a bit late. Um, and we are here tonight to discuss the election, US election, because that's kind of the biggest news around at the moment. Though there is other stuff happening. The retaking of Aleppo, the crackdown on corruption in India. So yeah, cool other news to look at if you're interested. But tonight is election night for us, so let's discuss that. First, what is everyone's like? Is this what people expected to happen? Oh, by the way, I'm playing Tyranny. It's probably going to be kind of boring to watch, but I had nothing better at the time. So
At the
I,
time, you mean right now?
I've been thinking of it for a little while. But anyway,
People's
So no,
reactions.
this is not what I expected.
I got way more emotional than I thought I would on that night. Oh, were you sleeping by the time? I think you were. Okay. How about people else talk? Or I'm just gonna talk about how I was crying because I'm a female and I'm an ethnic minority, and I feel worse for my other friends who are probably, well, you know, LGBTIQ people and immigrants and refugees. Yeah, way too emotional that night. I felt shit. Don't know about you guys.
I've never had um I guess social media or the news be that exhausting to look at for me because I didn't expect this outcome. I mean, as Jesse mentioned before we went on air, and he will probably bring up again, um, Brexit somewhat foreshadowed this, the fact that none of the polls in the UK predicted, Brexit happening, and none of the polling or models in the US really predicted a Trump victory. Um, and so I guess I thought maybe it might have been close, but I was reasonably confident that Hillary would uh, become the president elect, which obviously did not happen as the day went on and the votes continued to be counted, and it swung further and further and further towards Trump until he emerged victorious.
It wasn't a major swing. It was still pretty close.
Well, I'm talking about like the probabilities from the models.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the model probabilities started out with, the 70 or 90% for Hillary, and then eventually swung exactly the opposite way.
Yeah. Well, both of Brexit and the US election was bringing to light the silent majority that the media was talking about. That a lot of people that wanted to vote, to leave or to Trump didn't disclose it to the polls, and that's why they were inaccurate.
Yeah. So I was watching it, or even just thinking about it was, I thought Hillary was going to win it. To be honest, I thought, I reckon Trump's going to be closer than most of the media guesses because never underestimate the power of ticked off people. Um, and turned out they're more ticked off than I thought. Particularly in a few key states like Florida and Pennsylvania, Ohio. Um, there's a couple states that like we can talk about that maybe later, but the electoral college system means that some states who are conservative one way will never really change the outcome and vice versa. So there's only really a few states that the whole result hinges off. And, just watching those states turn red was like, oh, wow. Yeah, Trump's doing it. And by electoral college votes anyway, it was actually a decent margin. Again, close, but it was a noticeable margin. It wasn't just by like one. He could have lost another state or two and
Yeah.
still retain the presidency. So completely outside of any of the experts. But the thing is, this might be going to another issue, is that a lot of the polling and stuff was more in the echo chamber of the, I guess you call more liberal side, as opposed to the silent majority, which were not happy with how things were being run or not happy with the status quo.
I mean, polling itself is a science, and there's I guess errors associated with it. If if you're not getting to what voters really think, then obviously that's a problem, and it's not good for predicting things. But I saw an analysis that said if just one, to be clear, it was, as I quoted last week, I was referring quite frequently to Nate Silver's 538 blog, where he did an analysis, and essentially 1 in 100 votes, like if that was the error, if that swung to Hillary or Trump, that was enough to tip the election.
Okay, so we have a comment on the chat room. Should we address it?
Hillary was the most unlikable candidate in recent memory.
It was the lesser of two evils. That's how it always comes down to.
Yeah.
More so this time than usual. It's not always like that.
Yeah.
Well, the U.S. system kind of encourages that with its
single vote.
Yeah, single non-runoff, non-preferential system.
Well, apparently Maine's voted to bring in ranked voting, so you can rank candidates by preference.
But our host has been reasonably silent. Do you have anything to contribute, Jesse, or are you just gonna let us ramble?
He's designing the characters.
I was getting to talk.
I'm sure Jesse can multitask.
Yeah, this is pretty mindless. I'm basically just building a warrior version of my last one. So as Adam mentioned, I did actually see this coming. I follow a lot of world politics, and ever since Brexit happened, as this election got close, I sort of knew that this was going to happen too, because essentially they're the same reasons. This is sort of a reactionary thing against, well, I don't want to say globalization per se, because it's more against poor globalization, and I suppose we can get into that in a minute. But all the same things that eventually contributed to Brexit winning, including the inaccurate polls, feeling downtrodden and unheard by the media, feeling like your jobs are taken away by foreigners, the economic downturn, the increased tension in the world and disfavor over certain immigrants and terrorist attacks. All this stuff I saw was going to lead to Trump becoming victorious, especially with the Americans already being rather fed up with their system, where it's seen to be controlled by a urban or financial elite, and Trump promised to tear all that down and to revitalize those who had been forgotten by the rest, and to give voice to their fears. Not to their concerns more than their fears, but also their fears over things like terrorism.
Well, I mean, that's populism, isn't it?
Probably. Don't really know what definitions are.
I don't know either. I mean, like, I think we did talk about it a bit last week, and I remember mentioning, like him or hate him or whatever you think about him, he did run a much better, more successful campaign. As far as if you just want to analyze his campaigning, which is connecting with the voters so that people vote for him, he did that way better than Hillary. Like, it was in a very weird, non-standard way, but he actually connected with voters to make them vote, not to make them, but to encourage them to vote for him.
He also spent less money doing it.
Yeah, and he spent only his own money too, and he used that as a case in point, which was one of the few actual backed up points that he did, but it was a very, very potent one, which is, I'm not going to take anyone else's funding, I'm just going to fund myself, and that resonated a lot with voters, and that's was a really important point, which, he knew was going to be a huge benefit over him compared to Hillary.
And that's essentially what this election came down to. I think Hillary was very much, I think we discussed this last week actually, but Hillary is very much the system. She's the wife of an ex-president from a family that have had several presidents. Um, she campaigned in exactly the way and to the people that she would be expected to from the usual campaign trails. Her main meetings were with like financial backers, Wall Street, and all these other
More financial
things.
backers.
Whereas Trump was the complete opposite. He was very much a demagogue. He would just go everywhere pretty much to the people, and even to places you wouldn't expect, like him actually visiting Mexico after all the stuff he said about it. His campaign was shambles at the start and like still somewhat chaos at the end, run by people who had never done this before, didn't really know what they were doing. Um, and he himself was just, in a lot of ways, just appealing to um, appealing to people, to what they were. He'd sort of change his tack and even his policies depending on where he was, and very much tried to represent himself as a man of the people. And to his credit, I think he actually will be, especially after hearing um, recently that this wasn't a new decision for him. He said back in the 80s in an interview that if America keeps going down the path that he sees it going down, that he thinks it shouldn't be going down, then he will, um, he might even run for office and try and change something about it. And here we
The
are
thing
20
is,
years later, and he actually did.
he
Now we
didn't
just need to
win
see
the
if he'll
popular
change it.
vote, though.
No,
Hillary won the
and
popular vote. So is he really representing the majority? And also the voter turnout was somewhere around 50%. So you don't know what the other 50%. Well,
Well,
I guess
and
they didn't know who to vote for. That's why they
and
didn't
they
make
silenced
it.
themselves. They actually silenced themselves from having a voice because of this optional voting system. They
Yeah,
chose not to
it's
vote.
their choice. It's their choice. If they want to vote, they vote. If they don't want to vote, they don't
But
vote.
it still means the majority does.
Yeah, no, Donald
Sorry,
Trump was elected with 25% of
yeah,
eligible
that's
voters
not the
voting for him.
majority.
I mean, we
Well,
can make the same
no,
it's
argument
no
worth
about
president,
noting the
no
numbers
Brexit
were
as well.
very
Yeah.
the numbers were very close. Like the final count was, I think, 46.8 to 46.6. Like it was 0.02%. And I was reading the other day on what the Electoral College actually is and why it exists and so forth. And it's like its design is to make sure that all the states get a voice, even if it's sometimes not representative of their population, but for their concerns. So it's not just dominated by the massively populous cities on the scattered around the coasts like New York, Seattle, etc., which were the big Clinton areas and are probably where a lot of her, um, like a lot of the population for that popular vote came from. But the popular vote was really low, and um, well, ultimately that's because most people didn't want to vote for either candidate. Most people did not like, well, clearly people did not like Hillary much at all to vote Trump over Hillary, and although they might have liked what Trump stood for, most didn't like him as a person. So it's sort of people had these two decisions they didn't really like, and a lot of people just decided to not vote to not have to make that decision.
It seems like just looking at, I was looked at some charts and things. The voter turnout's kind of milled around the 50s for quite a while, as in it's the vote turnout isn't any much higher or lower than like by a
Okay.
big margin. So just if I'll link it. I mean it's Wikipedia, but just so you guys can see it. Um, I don't think it was much this year was, oh, I don't know who to vote for, so I'm not going to vote. They affected probably a few people, but most people go, I don't vote, and they don't. Like, to look at the numbers, it's usually between 50 and 60%
Yeah,
for the
yeah, this
last
is
how many
true. It's a fair
decades.
point.
So,
Which is
but
crazy when you think about it, because
yeah,
that literally means that someone is getting elected with 30, 25% of the electorate voting for them.
Such a strange
exactly.
perspective from Australia as well, where
Yeah.
everyone votes, and it to not vote, to especially in
Get fined.
especially in this election, like
Mm.
with the candidates as they are, whatever opinion you had on them, I'd be surprised if someone didn't have an opinion. Or,
There
I mean,
was a
is it
big
that they were
sentiment
so
though.
disaffected, but like they felt so out of, like their vote didn't matter that they didn't vote? Or,
It wasn't that people didn't feel that their vote didn't matter, but this thing you heard time and time again, or at least I heard so much of, was I am disgusted with Donald Trump, but I cannot trust and I do not like Hillary Clinton. Who do I vote for? Do I vote for the guy who doesn't know what Aleppo is, or do I vote for the woman who's going to get 2% of the vote and thinks that vaccines cause autism? I'll stay home and play Xbox. I would do that maybe, if I was in that situation. I can't judge them for making that call.
My view on the optional voting is, there's strengths and weaknesses of both optional and mandatory. But if you don't vote, and if in Australia, if you donkey vote, so you show up and you scribble something on it without eligible vote, you forfeit the right to complain about politics for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
That's my view.
In America, though, if you show up to vote and you're one of the 11,000 people who wrote in Harambe on your ballot, then you deserve the right to complain that Harambe didn't get in.
Yes, a gorilla been dead for 6 months. I mean, like, look, okay.
Why would you go to that effort?
Okay, so on initially I thought that was pretty funny. Then I realized, wait a second, you're saying that 13,000 people thought that was the most meaningful thing to write down, a silly meme of a dead gorilla, compared to who's actually running the country legit. No, seriously, this is not a joke.
Dude, Harambe was not just a gorilla.
Joel, we can have a whole episode about this gorilla later. For the moment, we're talking about the election.
I am really keen for the 6 months post-mortem Harambe themed episode. You ain't even seen memes yet.
Yes, it'll be our yearly meme special.
Oh no.
Going through all those
The
Joe
Harambe
Biden
report.
memes. They're fitting with the theme.
They're great.
No, I don't even remember where
But
we were.
no, I feel like I still prefer Hillary over Trump because at least she's not inciting racism and violence and hate.
Oi, but
Yeah.
Hillary supporters have been turning out in the streets and rioting lots.
Yeah, no, so I don't like that either. I think, you should still, this is the voted president, you should put up with it. I didn't like Abbott, and I started to put up with it. It's not like I'm going to go and riot. So I don't like rioting from either sides, but I still prefer Hillary over Trump because, it's really depressing seeing, with Brexit, it was depressing seeing the post-referendum racism, and with now, with post-election racism, with people being like, I'm going to rape your family and send you back to Mexico, or your time's up here, or it's really depressing, and it makes me, I'd still prefer Hillary over Trump.
I mean, as guess a bit of an article I read today from Al Jazeera. Apparently, the FBI said that hate crimes against Muslims in the US surged 67%. Rose in 2015 to the highest level since the aftermath of 9/11.
Wow.
And I mean, I can't see that.
Wait, sorry.
Getting
Did you say
better.
2015?
2015.
So they rose before the election. So I'm just trying to clarify that.
Well, it was.
Yeah, they were already trending up.
Yeah, it was during the campaign, but yes, it's not recently. But I can't see it decreasing because Trump's rhetoric was in a lot of ways what it was. It's hateful towards certain groups, and it kind of normalized it. Him getting elected normalizes it to a degree.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, it lessens the, I guess you call it, ugliness of racism in a way, kind of, but it doesn't excuse it in any way. But I think the people who are doing the writing on either side, or whatever is hate things on either side, are on the more extreme end of any sort of scale, regardless of which way it leans. So they're still going to be bit weird or a bit wacky on no matter who won. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
they can't say because Trump won, I'm going to go hurt people.
Yeah, and the thing
They're
is,
already
the
dodgy
really
people.
interesting thing is, there's a lot of Trump supporters who are now. I mean, it makes me so angry. Like I understand why they're doing it. I understand the hurt and anger that people must be feeling, but to give Donald Trump and his supporters the moral high ground is like a catastrophic mistake, almost on the same level as losing an election to Donald Trump and his supporters. Like it's a mess. It's a mess. But the the fact is, I was following a lot of Donald Trump pages, a lot of Donald Trump groups in the lead up to the election, up
Yeah, you were.
until the point on election day where the polls started to swing in Trump's favor. Everyone was saying Donald Trump will lose, the election will be rigged against him, we will take some sort of action. Donald Trump was saying, I will accept the result of the election if I win it. So he was the one who laid the groundwork for it being okay to say, I won't accept the election results. And he was the one who let his supporters carry on without telling them, hey, calm down, all these things about what we'll do if Hillary wins it. And so when Hillary supporters turn out and start protesting in the streets, the Trump supporters who've turned on them and started criticizing them are the same people who days ago were saying they would do exactly the same thing. It's ridiculous. But unfortunately, they can say it and they can get away with saying it because they haven't actually acted on it. Whereas the Hillary supporters have turned out, they've vandalized stuff, and people are going, "This is screwed up," and Donald Trump has the moral high ground. It's how did that happen?
To say they're the same people is a bit
Well,
of a stretch when you're talking about like what is half of America's population, several million people, like
I think it's almost
100
300
million
million or
people.
something like that total.
My sample
Yeah.
size for
But
both is my Trump groups, though. So the same
yeah,
people on those groups who were saying a few days before the election that they would be protesting or they would be taking action in some way against Hillary, against the system if she won the election, are the ones who are like mocking and ridiculing and saying that the Hillary supporters who are out protesting are un-American. They're doing no different from what these Trump supporters were planning to do if he lost.
yeah, but that's what people do.
Yeah,
Whatever
I'm
they
just pointing out that people are full of crap, right?
yeah, I mean
Both sides were
that's
ready to fight. The Donald Trump ones were just more vocal about it.
um oh, I don't know, you heard a lot about the Clinton supporters considering everyone beneath them and calling them all racists and chauvinists
Yep.
and
Well,
just
the thing is,
categorizing them as uneducated backwater swine pretty much.
a lot of them are. Sorry.
We've actually got the pre-polls. We sort of know that's not true.
Okay.
I guess we can pull up those numbers in a minute. First, though, Trump's actually made a statement today on. Um, Let me see if I can. I got a newspaper in front of me. I'm just reading the thing. He's actually denounced the. I think it was the racism of his followers.
I remember seeing things about how he was apparently shocked that there was, discrimination against minorities happening.
Yeah,
Oh gosh,
Like,
here we are.
he lives in a friggin' bubble, doesn't he?
To the
but he's
Ameri-
the one that was inciting it.
It's a big bubble.
to the
What was his
Americans.
comment? What was his comment? They're sending us. They're not sending us their best. They're sending rapists. They're sending all of these criminals. Some of them, I suppose, are good people. Like you didn't expect people to go out and like judge the crap out of people and take action against them with that kind of rhetoric. Come on.
Also, to be fair, I mean, what we've heard of these speeches is obviously the worst of them.
Yeah,
I
well,
was considering that
must admit,
today, but we only hear the interesting bits. We don't hear the rest where he could be quite rational or even maybe they weren't even all that bad. And especially
I mean,
after
he said-
seeing what he's done after the election and his acceptance speech and all that stuff, maybe they weren't as bad as the media made me think. But anyway, the quote
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
got
well,
here.
everyone's been saying though that those have been much better than the other speeches that he's made. As in, compared with everything he's been saying during his campaign, post-election Trump is very surprising.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was bawling my eyes out on Wednesday night, but when I heard his winning speech, that gave me some hope that maybe this was all a farce and he's not so bad. But yeah.
He's still building the wall.
No, it's a fence now.
Fence.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's anchored to a fence.
In parts, he wants an actual wall in other parts, but he's gone, yeah, okay, we can accept a fence in other parts.
No way! Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! Oh
Like-
dear.
Okay, I don't have a
We
quote,
elected him for nothing.
but in his wide-ranging interview on 60 Minutes, President-elect Trump called on his supporters not to vilify minority groups, as he outlined how his approach to immigration and domestic policy, such as jobs, tax cuts, and health reforms, would re-energize America. And this comes after he had a conciliatory phone call with the Chinese president. And in regards to the protests, he said, I would tell them, don't be afraid, absolutely. Don't be afraid, we are going to bring our country back, but certainly don't be afraid. He said as a president he would conduct... Yeah, the rest isn't related. And like, his exit speech was all on unity and like appealing to Clinton, to the other side, the Democratic supporters, I think that's right, to help him be the president, to unite this country. And his actions have shown that. Like, have you guys heard the thing about Obamacare?
What's the
What do
thing?
you-
That he wouldn't be gutting it.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
keeping parts
thank
of it.
goodness.
And this happened after discussions with Obama, where he says he was swayed to actually keep some parts of it in place. So he's listening to advice.
Okay. Because the plan was always, well, I don't know if the plan was always, all I'd heard, at least close to the election, was that he was going to transition from Obamacare to something else, but it was going to be, there was going to be another system coming into place, and it was always going to be transitioning from the old system to the new system, not stopping the old system and having nothing to replace it with. But the idea of actually keeping elements of that, I mean, that's really good. Also, his supporters are going to be so mad because they wanted it gone.
Well, I mean, to be seen what the rest of the Republican Party thinks. The fact is, the Republican Party now controls all aspects of government.
Yeah.
Which, so I mean, this election is more than Trump, because the election this election essentially decided the future of the Supreme Court. And now that Republicans have all three branches of government, I don't think the Democrats are in much of a position to negotiate or obstruct things.
Yeah, literally the only people that Trump has to negotiate with at this stage are his own party. That's it.
And so, yeah, whatever. Trump is obviously a huge part of the election, but more than that is the fact that the Republicans now control the government, which is concerning for many reasons.
Many reasons, yeah.
So I mean, it's the Trump, I guess, saying that he's not going to remove like social welfare in the form of Obamacare is, I guess, encouraging. His preliminary actions and what he's said in the past about how he's going to tackle climate change, not so encouraging.
Yeah.
Because the person he's appointed for the transition, or the transition team for the EPA, is a climate change denier, which is not exactly the person you want in charge of the EPA.
Did you hear what Sarkozy said about in response to Trump wanting to pull out the Paris deal? He was suggesting that the countries within the Paris Environmental Contract, whatever it is, should start taxing American products if they do pull out to, taxing them even higher.
I love it.
I mean, that's actually
I have
a really
also
stupid idea, because you'll end up America will counterattack, and then you've got a trade war that you are going to get wrecked on, like what happened with Russia
Yeah.
when Europe decided to do that to Russian. Well, when America made Europe do that to Russian vegetables or whatever. And America's like, okay, we won't buy your stuff either, and suddenly you had entire countries losing massive profit.
Just not trading. Well, I thought Trump wanted to bring the jobs back from China, so wouldn't that also cause some economic tension between China and America?
Well, yeah, that's probably um, like I would actually say that Trump was my preferred candidate for this election, and for that mostly it's to do with his foreign policy, or probably more accurately, his lack thereof. Trump has said that he does not want America to continue acting like it has been in the world. He wants America to pull back, to focus on America, to pull out of this pseudo Cold War with Russia and try and repair disputes there, um, to stop posturing over the Yellow Sea dispute, um, and various other things like that. The trade war with China was probably the only thing that was sort of iffy on that, because he wants to bring American manufacturing back, and to do that he's got to sort of take on China. Though no word on how that's actually going to happen, or if that's going to happen, has been said yet. And the phone call with the Chinese president seems to have gone over well. But like for me, Clinton would have just continued the policies that have torn apart the Middle East, left pretty much every country that America's had a hand in there in absolute chaos, and a chaos that's spreading to the rest of the world now, causing this racism and everything as refugees flood into these regions more than can be handled. Refugees, I should add, rather than just refugees themselves. And terrorism is sort of spreading under this story of an oppressive regime. And not to mention the recent posturing over the Yellow Sea, directly being provocative with China, and Russia wanting to start a no-fly zone over Syria just to mess with Russia, because Russia doesn't support their Islamic rebel group, because America's supporting Islamic rebel groups to be part of the new government has always gone over well. But basically Trump wants none of that, and people were saying, oh, Trump's going to start World War III. It's kind of actually the opposite. If a World War III was going to happen, it would be at Clinton's doing. Trump wants no part of no wars anywhere, except maybe with ISIS, because that's pretty useful for uniting people around you to fight these evil terrorists.
I will admit that is one thing I do admire about Trump's basically isolationist policies, which is just stepping back from, interfering with the rest of the world.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever. Oh, sorry, go on, Jesse.
We sort of discussed at the start that the election's sort of about compromise, and ultimately that's sort of how I saw it too. It's each has their positives on certain policies, each has their negatives on certain policies. Ultimately, it comes down to which are you willing to compromise on, and which are you not. For me, the global safety and security, as well as just other countries being able to do things that other than what America tells them and have the ideologies America tells them. Ultimately, that was more important to me than the things that he may or may not have done at home. Not that it's not like I wanted him to be terrible to immigrants, to kick them all out, to stop refugees, or anything like that, but that's kind of, to me, that was the lesser evil compared to provoking a worldwide war again, or just destabilizing an entire region of the world in favor of American ideals.
Well, when you look at it, you look at the candidates or parties. It's true of any election, really. And you look, okay, well, that's a deal breaker. Well, that's a deal breaker. Well, that's a deal breaker. Well, hang on, both sides are deal breakers for me. Then what do you do? And that's what kind of Jesse is talking about. Is, ordinarily that would be a deal breaker. And those that know me in this circle of life, and they see I've voted this way or that way, would think, how can you compromise on that? That's a deal breaker. Like, well, yes, it is, but this is too. and I didn't want to, but I have to. So you know what I mean? Like there's that, you know, just because you vote for someone doesn't mean you support everything 100% fully, every single word that they say. And that's what a lot of people are getting angry about, particularly at each other.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to be mindful that, yeah, a vote is in like, regardless of whether it's America or Australia, you know, a vote is a tool. It's not, you're not pledging eternal allegiance. It's like a vote for Hillary doesn't mean that you agree literally with everything that she's ever done, nor does a vote for Trump mean that you agree with everything that he or his party, or the same as Hillary and the Democrats. It's a tool to make your voice heard.
that's incredibly important to realize because I think, at least in the vocal part of social media, they don't get that point. At least in the very vocal part of social media. Most people, I think most people get it. I think most people understand, yeah, you know what? Not every voter is going to agree 100% with their candidate because, you know, they're different people and there's like hundreds of different things to agree and disagree on. If you perfectly line up, you're actually probably a clone.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever really concerned. I mean, yeah, I guess I probably mirror some of the, or would echo some of the discussion about perhaps Trump's stance on globalization being that, or isolationism and foreign policy, given that I'm not in America. I guess my concern with the results of this election, them less about Trump and more about the Republican Party's record with civil liberties for non-straight white men, and the aforementioned climate change issue, because that affects everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Pence, Trump's VP, hasn't got a great track record with LGBT plus
Yeah.
issues,
No.
and has previously advocated for conversion therapy. So that's like that's obviously on a global scale. That's not World War III, but that makes that issue alone makes a lot of affects a lot of people in the
Yeah.
US.
That took decades. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, go on, Reggie.
I was gonna say it took. I don't know why, but even the Psychology Association of America, it took them a few decades for them to remove, homosexuality as a mental illness, because that used to be considered a mental illness. Now it's based on biological studies and stuff like that, nothing really determines your sexual orientation. It just is, and it shouldn't be causing any problems. But I just find it ridiculous that, yeah, he wants to bring back conversion therapy. What?
And I mean,
Well,
all of us will differ on this issue, but there's also the Republican Party's stance on, I guess, abortion and sex education.
And Trump's not been good on that, has he? He's said
I
things
think
like women
he's
should be punished for seeking abortions, and then Pence was like, no, that's bad. And then Pence reversed his stance and said, actually, no, maybe they should. And I think Trump reversed his stance and said, actually, I didn't mean that. So,
But regardless of what those two say, the Republican Party hasn't been great with its great in this regard in reproductive rights. And I know that some of us will have disagreements about that issue, but
it's a delicate topic. But did you guys also look at some of the other propositions that the states voted on? So medical marijuana and recreational marijuana became legalized in a lot of states. Woo! Also, Nebraska brought back the death penalty.
Oh, what?
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that was a thing.
That is unfortunate.
Even up for discussion.
So that was apparently one of the propositions, to bring back the death penalty. That was a bit shocking, and I don't know how I feel about that. I usually feel like capital punishment, probably not the best.
We
did find
discussed
it
the issue of
amusing.
capital punishment before on here.
Sorry?
Have
We
we
have.
discussed the issue of capital punishment?
Haven't we?
We've been
Oh.
going to, but we haven't done a discussion on here. War kind of
Right.
strayed into that a little though, I think. But yeah, I did find it amusing that at least going off Facebook's how many people are talking about this during the entire election, we had double the amount of people talking about medicinal marijuana than we did the election itself. It was like 1
No.
million for that and 500,000 for election,
I don't believe it. Well, we
which
have
was about
different
tied.
I
With,
want to believe it.
which is about tied with how many people were complaining about Toblerone.
Now that's a real problem that affects us. Like, have you seen those bars? They're ridiculous. How do you
Apparently,
eat
pretty
that?
the
dumb now.
decision has been reversed. They're not going to do
Oh,
it.
thank goodness. Alrighty.
Like pizza
I
shape
can deal with
flavors.
Trump as long as Toblerone stays right.
See, as consumers, if we make a fuss, things change. Like when GladWrap put their the saw blades on the wrong part of the box, people complained, and I think they reversed that decision. I guess the same has happened with Toblerone.
What happens if
We
people
have a
put their
voice.
votes on the wrong part of the ballot? I'm just saying.
Back to our previous topic, though. Well, like, firstly, Trump is against abortion and has said that the judge he will appoint will be anti-abortion. That's one thing he has said on that. Which, I mean, for me, that's a positive. But that's an episode in itself that I'm trying to recruit a woman for. Like another woman.
I was going to say.
Yeah. I want at least
Careful.
I want at least a Christian woman on here for that as well. So it's not just us. But
Yeah, that'd be a great look for the show. Far out.
yeah. In terms of
I have a question. It might be a
LGBTI
sensitive
stuff,
question.
though, like
Yeah.
Trump has actually,
What's up?
like, he's got a project. He's been pretty accepting of that, and he's shown that. So in that regard, at least, like, he's probably going to at least keep that around the same as it is, as long as he
Well, that's
considers
the
that worth
point, though.
fighting
It's
his
more
party
about the
for.
party as well. Yeah, like Trump doesn't make all the decisions.
What were you saying, Reggie?
Oh, I was gonna. A question came to mind, and I don't know if it's too sensitive, inappropriate. The question is, do you want a female Christian or a female pro-lifer?
Well, given how hard it's been to find a female Christian, any? Like, oh wait, no, I get the question now. No, like ideally there would have been like when I put this together, I've tried to get rather balanced views from all sides. Like we represent a couple of different. I mean, we're all from Baptist tradition, but in terms of conservative versus liberal, we've got a bit of a spectrum going. Though we don't have as conservative as I'd like. I'm the most conservative on here, and it's not overly conservative.
Hi.
And ideally there'd be a yeah, we sort of differ. We kind of alternate. I guess between us we make a conservative Christian because the things I'm more liberal on, you tend to be more conservative on, and vice versa.
Yeah. This is true.
And then Joel's the liberal, if you couldn't tell.
What?
Oh, I'm far more conservative on some things than you guys, I'm sure. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But like
I'm
ideally,
a
I would
very
also
conservative
have.
person. I'm just conservative in different areas.
Yeah. Ideally, there'd be a spread of like female Christians on here as well. It's just everyone I've tried to recruit has pulled out. So just haven't had the time or various other things. So we're sort of left with who's here. Right. What election cycle
Sorry.
were we at before? Oh, I think we finished. No, like we finished on our topic of what might happen. The thing I was going to
Did you
say
want to go
though
any
is that
further?
Trump will be kind of interesting in regards to his popularity base and everything, in that everything he's done since election has sort of been denouncing the like far right stuff that led to him actually being elected, and
Isn't that
he's been
interesting?
appealing more to centrist and to like center left as well. He's sort of been backing away from the extremes of either side in favor of um, sort of like I don't. Given his speech, I think he might actually be working to um, unite the nation to try and get those that he can with these things.
I mean, it's sort of like his rhetoric and his whole thing was pretty, you know, it really did a lot to really push the divisions that were there. So yeah, if he's doing things that are moving back towards unity, kind of like, yeah, you should. But at the same time, I'd be sort of like I'd be cautious about getting too optimistic about it. Like, he's shown throughout his whole campaign that what he's most concerned with is saying the things that'll make people happy so that they'll support him. And so
So you're saying he's a politician?
well, I'm saying that he is more ridiculous than most politicians. As in, you look at the fact check stats on the things that he said during his campaign, more than 2/3 of the calls he made were flat out, lies. So he will say whatever is going to get him support. And so I would be taking anything that he's saying with a fairly large grain of salt. I'm not saying you can't trust him at all, but I would be cautious about being too optimistic at this stage. I think we wait and see what comes out.
I mean, I also want to add that the people likely to be, or the people that might be most concerned about this election, as I've mentioned before, are, minority groups or women.
Yeah.
And I have to keep in mind that whatever my view on the US election and its implications, I'm a white guy in Australia, so
Yeah.
I'm quite distant from all of the implications. So, I mean, I can talk about it in the abstract, but certain real aspects of it are less real to me.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, do you feel like I don't know how to say it. Well, some of the ramifications aren't completely obvious to you guys because you aren't, as Adam says, minorities or women, because I guess they, well, maybe they have the foresight to see some of these things happening, and that's why minorities are predominantly voting for Hillary.
Yeah, yeah.
And or maybe, the majority white male population did see some of these ramifications, but felt, okay, this doesn't really affect me, so it's not my problem. I'm not bunching you guys all together.
No, it's a fair call to make, though. There are a lot of, and I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook along those lines, the people who are saying, it's okay, it's just another president, we'll get through this, what's the worst that can happen, are the people who aren't going to be too affected by it. They can say, this won't affect us too much, because it won't affect them too much. But for people, who are already in a place where they are disadvantaged in society and face challenges, Trump is a candidate who, based on the claims he's made during his election campaign, seems to be looking to make a lot of those aspects a lot worse.
And we have like 2 months until he actually becomes president. We'll see. He might do a complete 180.
And one
Do you
thing
feel
that's
that's
worth
likely,
noting
Reggie?
too is that
Sorry, what?
like it's hard to say this without coming across as like white men are important too, but like part of he is in some ways looking out for a different group of oppressed and stuff. Like his big sort of his swing states and his big push, at least in the later days, was in the old manufacturing towns of I think it's the Midwest America, and that's one of the more concrete things he's gone about is regaining America's place, bringing our manufacturing back from countries like Mexico and China, and giving jobs back to these towns where there's just nothing there. Like it's more an urban versus rural thing rather than any race or
Yeah.
class, but that ends up being like the rural towns are mostly white. Um, but a lot of this and previous debates in media especially all focuses on cities. It's all the concerns of cities. It's debates about ideology in cities over things like policies and rights and so forth. And everyone
Yeah,
sort
that
of
was the point
ignored
that
these towns that are just dying because there's no work for them there anymore. There's no factories. All the manufacturing's moved overseas. Farming you can only do so much, and there's very little profit in it for very hard work. And Trump sort of he unanimously won these towns pretty much, and they were hit hard by other things such as Obamacare and that, which now all of a sudden their health coverage that they now had to have would go up by, in some cases, thousands of dollars, because now they had to cover for this, as they saw it, this new ideology that's doing nothing but downtread them further. And
Yeah,
not to
Michael
say that
Moore. I
these
don't
aren't
know if you
important.
saw his post about why Trump will win, but he was saying something along the lines of, yeah, Trump rolled into these Rust Belt towns in like Michigan and that where the manufacturing industries have absolutely crashed, and went to these out of work people and said, I'm gonna get you your jobs back, and went to the companies that had employed them and said, hey, if you send these jobs elsewhere, I'm going to make sure that you're going to get taxed so much that it's not going to be viable for you to even stay in business. You keep American jobs in America. And they went, wow, okay, this is something to worry about. And all the people who had lost their jobs went, wow, okay, this is someone we get behind.
Yeah, I mentioned at the very start that a lot of this is a pushback against what I'd call is bad globalization. Like I'm all for globalization as sort of free market trade between countries, sharing of people and resources against across borders, all that sort of thing. But what we've actually been doing with this has not been that. It's been um, like countries bringing war against each other or consequences of war against each other, but mostly economically, it's been people going for wherever there's profit. They don't want to pay their own workers here. They get the resources from here, ship them out to other countries with lower labor costs, exploiting them and their people.
And child labor.
Yeah, including things like child labor and just horrific practices all in the name of turning a profit. Like if this had been, like if it was like a world of Americas and everyone was just sharing based on that country's strengths and resources, this would work fine, but it's not. There's so much inequality and so forth in the world, and capitalism is driven by profit that people just go for the highest profit regardless of any ethics or morals in their cross-border globalization, which unfortunately is
It's
leading to
so
this
ironic
pushback
in
now.
light of that it's Trump who's the one who's leading the charge against this, right?
I know, right?
Like he embodies that. He
That's the president's job. Lead the people.
So yeah, looking at the, I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but we didn't really discuss any of the statistics. We've got the New York Times exit poll demographic results and their swings versus the 2012 values. As was mentioned before, I guess whites predominantly voted Republican, whereas all other groups voted Democrat. But for all groups, there was a swing towards Republican. In terms of income, the two lowest income brackets voted 53, 51% Democrat, but there was a reasonably significant swing to Republican there.
A massive swing, actually. 16-point for the under 30,000.
Yes, 16% for under 30,000,
Yeah,
which is
that's
significant. In terms of education, I guess there was white college graduates were 45% likely to support Democrats, 49 Republicans, but there was a swing towards Democrats there. Whites without a college degree, 28% voted Democrat, 67% Republican, with a quite a large 14% swing to Republicans from the 2012. So there's quite a in a lot of these numbers, there's quite significant swings towards Republicans in most places. In terms of sex, men 41% Democrats, women, 53% Republicans, women pretty much the opposite numbers, 54 and 42. Men experienced a 5% swing to Republicans, and women a 1% swing to Democrats.
It's worth noting with that, though,
Also,
like our page doesn't have the stats for it, but I've seen the breakdown of gender across race, and the women are mostly skewed by things such as the Black, Hispanic, and Latino votes towards that. In terms of white women, it's sort of I think it was 53 Democrat or something much. Well, this one says 54. But anyway, the numbers were very close for women, like white women, in terms of Democrat, Republican.
Do you see the race breakdown below the male and female breakdown? Like every race, other than white, majority Democrats, but all of them had a swing towards Republicans.
I just realized that swing for black too. They were at 1%
Yeah,
support
7%
for Republican before this.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Some of these are closer than I'd thought too. Like, I mean, 29% Hispanic vote for Republicans is hardly huge, but that's bigger than I would have thought, especially given his rhetoric on all this stuff. And Asian, like, I don't really know what to make of that because they don't face the same discrimination and everything in America.
They're also a small population, I think.
Yeah, it's small enough that they don't feature in most polls because there's not enough people to actually poll to get a
they come
representative
under
sample.
the other category.
Yeah. And education is, like, for all the left talk of, oh, it was these backwards hill folk that did it, the splits on education are quite even. Like,
Or college level, yeah, like 49 and 45.
yeah, postgrad is skewed strongly the other way.
Well, to speak
58,
about
37.
postgrad, the population in postgrad plus is also low, so it will be more, but it's more likely that a small population swings more as well, because postgrad's what, how much
Yeah.
percent population?
Like, the surprising thing for me is because education, like college education above tends towards being very liberal too. Like,
well, they have an 8% swing towards the Democrats from 2012.
Yeah.
The age group ones are really interesting, I found.
Which one?
age groups.
age
Just
with
Oh, yes.
yeah. That's probably the most telling one. Also the
though the swings are interesting for the age,
yeah
and perhaps opposite what I would have expected. Because in terms of the raw statistics, it's the 18 to 29-year-olds Democrat, 30 to 44 Democrat, and then 45 to 64 and 65 and over Republican. But the swings are almost the opposite of that. The 18 to 29-year-old group experienced, and I keep using the word experienced as if it's like happening to the group rather than the group actually making the decision. But 18 to 29-year-olds swung 5% to Republicans, whereas 30 to 44-year-olds 1% Democrat, but the 65 and overs, they swung Democrat.
What's interesting is that, and I think you might mention that, is that from 4 years ago, everyone's 4 years older. So people who were in one age group previously, some of them will have moved up,
Yes.
which gives interesting effect to the results.
Or at least in the results in neighboring categories anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's so much like looking at the New York Times results, this is all just it's not geographic. And it'd be interesting. Like there's so much
the
data
resident
mining.
bit.
Is there?
Yeah, scroll into residents. It shows the vote breakdown based on whether you're in a
suppose.
city, suburb, or rural area.
But I mean, in terms of matching, like what about residents as it relates to sex or race or age or education? Like there's so much data mining that could be done with this data, and well, I mean, there's a wealth of data that people will be using to analyze the election for probably years to come. I guess that's why political science is its own discipline.
I think like probably the things that describe the election best for me are the two stats under best description of vote and then most important candidate quality. Like best description of vote is like 49% of Republican vote is I like my candidate but with reservations. 51 I dislike the other candidate. And I saw that in previous poll data too.
I saw that as well.
Most people were voting their party because they hated the other candidate. They didn't like their party, they just hated the other candidate more. That's what the early poll numbers said. And then the most important candidate quality, like for a Republican, 83% voted because they think he can bring needed change. And like that's really what this election was about. And it's really why they shouldn't have betrayed Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't Obama's thing change you can believe in?
I thought it was Yes We Can.
Yes We Can was one thing. Who was the change we
Yeah,
can
it
believe
was.
in person?
Because I remember the Bob the Builder memes.
That was Barack Obama. Change we can believe in. That's the current president.
But that was the 2012, not 2008 slogan.
Yeah, that change we can believe in. That was 2008.
No,
Yeah?
wasn't it Yes We Can was 2008?
Yeah, 2008 was definitely Yes We Can.
But it was also like the hope and change because they were on the slogan, the posters that what's his face, Shepard Fairey did. Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see if the internet can guide us. I remember it was like there's that song from will.i.am that gets you super patriotic and emotional. It's like splicing together Obama's campaign speeches. Like, yes, we can. Sorry. Campaigns. Okay, here we go.
Obama was an interesting presidency. It's one that, like, so much promise, but so hamstrung by the other mechanisms of government. Like, what
Still,
do you reckon
well.
he?
And,
yeah, he
and
did quite a lot.
The tone of his approach to things is something that I think people on both sides of politics are looking at in retrospect and going, "Gosh, I wish the politicians we've got to choose from now policy aside, I wish they talked and acted like Obama.
Yeah. And like we
There
mentioned the
was
voting numbers before, part of the reason that they're so skewed in our mind is because the voting numbers were huge for Obama. Like he motivated
Yeah.
about 25% more of the population than normally votes to go out and vote. And
Barack
this one
Obama
didn't.
had 4 different slogans in 2008, which was change we can believe in, change we need,
Told you,
hope,
yes.
and yes we can. Yeah.
So
I
an
know
interesting.
my 2008 presidential campaign. I cared about that one probably more than anything since.
Yeah.
Saw an interesting thing the other day too on like other countries reacting to Obama, like leaving the presidency, and he has got nothing but respect from other countries. Like barely found a bad word about him in it.
Funny though, because all the Republicans will tell you, "Oh, he embarrassed us in world politics."
Yeah.
Like,
He
how
got a
determined are
Nobel
you
Peace
to?
Prize, which probably was a bit premature, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they resent him for that. They're like, this guy hadn't even,
He
done
didn't bring
anything as president
peace.
when he got
He
there.
hasn't done enough drone strikes.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh wow.
I think even Obama was a little bit taken aback by that one. Guys, come on, what are you giving me this for? But no, he's been good. I'll miss him.
Yeah. I'm happy to be alive to see the first, well, to see a president like Barack Obama, but also to see the first black president. Amazing. Could have had our first female one. Someday.
It'll
Orange.
happen yet.
It'll happen.
Got
And
our
there-
second black president coming up in 2020, guys. Kanye West. Yeah.
Kanye, yeah. Going for the popular vote again.
I'm ready for Kanye versus Trump. That is going to be an election to watch.
So, any thoughts on the 2-term system America has? So Australia unlimited terms, US 2 terms max.
I thought Australia was also 2 terms as well.
No,
Nah.
it's max until they die or get voted out.
How long was Howard in for? Did he make 5 terms?
No,
I don't think
it
it wasn't 5. It was
I thought
3
it
or
was
4, right?
4. 3 at least, definitely 3. And he was the 3rd longest serving, and he had 3 full terms.
Wait, really? He's 3rd longest?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 3rd longest. Wikipedia, Google.
96 to 2007.
Yeah,
So
so
what's
there
that?
you go.
Yeah, it's 3 terms.
4 terms?
3
3 terms.
terms. 3, yeah.
I really thought it was longer than that.
Oh, when considering we're 4 years old when he got 3 or 4 years old when you
Oh
got
no,
voted
it's
in.
4 terms.
Oh,
He
3
was in-
terms. That's right.
He was in it for 11 years and 267 days. Wow. Okay, so the number one, Sir Robert Menzies, total time in office, 18 years and 160 days.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. Of course, none of our recent prime ministers appear very high on this list.
They didn't even make a term.
Yeah, we had our first female prime minister and no one, blinked an eye. Just kind of came and went.
That's because
Well,
no one
actually,
actually
that's-
voted for her.
No,
She just
this
got
is-
No,
thrown
that's
in.
not true. That's not true. She was voted in legitimately in 2010.
That is true.
As in sorry, I'm a soapbox here for a second. Everyone always is like dissing on Jay Gills, saying that she wasn't legitimate because she didn't get the people's vote. She was voted in, and okay, she led a minority government, sure, but she was still the person who the Australian people chose as our prime minister in 2010. People need to get over the whole Gillard run thing and go.
Unless it's actually more the independents that the people didn't choose her. The independent leaders chose her of the 3 swinging seats. Just FYI on that one.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Windsor,
okay.
Oakeshott, and Wilkie
Be,
chose her as Prime
be
Minister.
technical about it, sure. Whatever it comes down to, we voted for them and trusted that they'd make the right call if it came down to it, you know?
Yeah.
End of the day, she was our Prime Minister. She was elected. Her
Yes.
government was elected by the Australian people. And so people get hung up on the idea of, nah, she got the job off Rudd, not legitimately. Well, if her prime ministership was not legitimate, we had lots of opportunities to do something about it, and we didn't. So, yeah. Anyway, rant over.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Carry on.
It's also why independents won't get many seats after that election, because Windsor, Wilkie, and Oakeshott ruined it.
Have you seen the Senate though? Like,
Senate's upper and lower has a different story. They're different. They're very, very different beasts. And yes, I've seen the upper house.
Our one or yeah, I suppose our one because they don't have an upper house. I was looking at the past American election results because they were on the bottom of one of the pages for the like during it happening thing, and like they've had two independents, no more, no less, for however far that went, like 16 years or whatever, which I found rather interesting. I don't know if it's the same two independents for all those years, or if it just always happens that there's only two states that vote in independence or whatever. But it was just
Well, the thing is,
amusing.
with independents in the US, they've got to amass a certain amount of votes to even get put on the ballot.
Wait, wait, you need to be put on a ballot to be put on a ballot though, don't like to get votes, right?
Well,
ballot
they don't
section.
you can't immediately get put on the ballots. I think there's some certain qualifying thing that they need to do.
And Vermin Supreme matched it somehow?
I'm not sure of the details, but I
Sorry.
think that might be how it works.
Oh my goodness, people gave Vermin Supreme votes.
Now he's never made it onto the ballots, I'm sure. But you
Okay.
can write in your candidate, right? And so he's
Okay.
contested every election, but no one's taken him seriously enough to actually vote for him. He just keeps showing up as a candidate and has a small but dedicated following of people who make enough noise that he gets media attention. Not serious media attention, but media attention, right?
Who's this? I got distracted.
I was just talking about Vermin Supreme, the guy with the boot on his head. You know that guy, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
No idea.
Oh, dude, you've been missing out on the best thing
no.
to happen to American politics
Don't think
since,
Jesse likes only vote for him in the next election. This guy. Anyway.
I mean, that was a good. Well, if the parties had been what they said on the tin, or what I thought they said on the tin in the case of Fred Nile or whatever his actual name was.
Not enough optometrist died years ago.
Then I would have been right. Like, I'm economically liberal and socially conservative. It's a weird mix. I don't really have parties. I have Russia, I suppose.
No, you've got the DLP very much, I think. It's K. My mum votes for them too. Like, the last time they were relevant was when she started voting for people. But you can vote for them. They've got your best interests at heart, Jesse.
Democratic Labour Party.
Yeah.
See, I think I looked at them after the election when I was finding out who I actually voted for. I thought, hey, these guys are decent.
Yeah, no, they're literally the opposite
Jesse,
of me.
You should do your research before the election next time.
Yeah, I got a bit carried away with like, hey, I know what these words mean on these like minor parties now. I mean, my vote's going to go to a major party anyway, so let's just pick one of these minor ones for fun. Well, not for fun, but just...
Red Nile Party, man. Oh my goodness.
I mean, that was a pretty great groan there, Reggie.
Yeah. So I get like annoyed because there were some people I used to go to high school with, because they told me who they were intending to vote for, and they're basically just picking based on the name of the party and not looking into the policies. I'm like, some of them choose names to be a bit deceptive. Like some liberals, some of my liberal-minded friends thought that family first would be particularly good, but when you look at their policies, it really doesn't align with what most progressives would align with. And like, dude,
I don't
you
think
should
it
like,
aligns
one way
with
of
any
putting it.
And I mean,
progressives.
no,
our
no,
major
you should,
party
like,
called
look into the
Liberals is the
policies.
exact opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just like, guys, at least check out their Wikipedia page to
Oh,
see
actually,
what they're going for
the Democratic Labour Party spells Labour appropriately.
without
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
they're definitely better than.
So wait, with a U? That's
With
the
a
proper
U.
way? Yeah, because
Yeah,
we have
Well,
it
they
with
we're
spell
in
it
a
the
Australia.
Australian way.
damn
But-
Americanization.
But they, in the major, they call it the Australian Labor Party, so that way they know, you know, spelled wrong, which country it's for.
Yeah, Labour Party. Talking about Americanization, so there's some ads on TV here, and I decided to check it out. There's like this keep them public movement because Mike Bard wanted to privatize basically a bunch of rural hospitals, like in Goulburn and Shell Harbour and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I find that interesting. I think it's a bad move towards privatization.
I'm inclined to think anything that Mike Baird comes up with is a bad move, just on principle. But
What?
Is that your politics? My politics is Mike Bard. Not a good idea. That's it. That's just my politics.
Yeah. I mean, there is a whole political party called Stop the Greens. So I think defining myself by what one person I hate thinks is like, it's if not a smart way to go, it's at least I'm not the only one doing it.
This is the
Well, I
first
mean-
I've heard this Stop the Greens party. Is it only in Queensland?
There's none that have actually gotten in, but yeah, it's like the outdoor recreation party, but they're like on the ballot they have outdoor recreation party brackets Stop the Greens.
Yeah, okay. The Wikipedia redirects from Stop the Greens to the Outdoor Recreation Party. It professes to represent the outdoor community and interests such as cycling, bushwalking, camping, kayaking, four-wheel drive motoring, skiing, fishing, and shooting.
How is that against the Greens?
Well, because, the Greens don't like the outdoors.
Well, I mean, they
But
don't like
they're all
shooting.
about renewable energy?
They're all about being PC and keeping you out of national parks and stopping you from having any fun, guys. Come on. They're not about enjoying our natural resources responsibly and with a view to preserving them for the future. That would be ridiculous.
Well, to be fair, a lot of their party is kind of the view that, no, we shouldn't enjoy our natural resources, and you know what? Humans kind of suck anyway. We should just, like, stay inside all the time with a solar panel.
I mean, I don't know which Greens voters you've been talking to, but that's not my perception of them. Having said that, I also do stay inside a lot of the time, so maybe we are like that. Who knows?
I thought maybe.
And I can be quite cynical about human anyway.
I thought
I mean,
most Green voters nowadays anyway were more on the social issues rather than the environment, specifically the environment, that is.
Well, climate change is a big issue.
I definitely vote Greens. Like 90% of my reason for doing that is because they're the only semi-major party with a not awful refugee policy. So
That too.
the environmentalism is like a factor in there. Like, yeah, it's good, but like, they're also like, let's treat human beings with decency and respect, and I'm down with that.
So is this episode Australian politics by way of the US election?
Yeah, we've come a bit of a way from the initial topic. Jesse, how are we
Yeah.
doing for like covering things?
We got about an hour of footage. Discussed most of the things I can
I assume
think
we
of,
want
really.
more than the footage.
Well, I will say one thing, so in terms of Australia relative to the American election. The best thing to come out, well, not the best thing, but one of the great things coming out of the American election is that people are talking about politics and seriously considering who they vote for. So hopefully in the next Australian election, more people will seriously consider who they vote for.
And vote for Pauline Hanson.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's 4 years away. People aren't gonna keep up this momentum.
Well, Trump
Which
was
is
going to be
good
president then.
because they would vote for Pauline Hanson right now. Like in Townsville,
Oh yeah,
the
no,
election a few
Townsville.
months back, she got
Yeah.
more than 10% of the primary vote. And if the election was held again today, she would almost double that from what I've heard.
Did you guys see
Yep.
her congratulations video to Trump?
No, I don't think I want to. I'm scared.
It
Yeah, I don't watch this.
It was like
But I
toasting
mean-
outside Parliament House.
would make you really
Oh,
depressed.
golly.
Part of this is because
Uh,
of like the situation of our town in that we have massive unemployment, one of the highest, if not the highest
Thanks,
in
Clive
Australia.
Palmer.
We have massive crime, again, one of the highest in Australia. And this stuff just keeps going up while all the money keeps going to Brisbane. And people are fed up with
it's
it.
almost
And
like
it's sort
we're
of
in exactly
breeding
the same
that
position
situation.
as America.
Like, we
Almost
are.
like the exact same things are going on that led
We're
to
just
Trump
not as
getting
far.
in.
Like, the whole world is getting like this. Brexit was a symptom of the same thing, and basically the West is losing
How do
its
we
like
stop it? How
economic
do we go
advantage.
back?
North Queensland. North Queensland. North and
Well,
South Queensland. Done.
I'd argue we rethink capitalism and
Quexit,
try to
yes.
make a more responsible globalization that stops abuse
Yeah.
based on actual, like, on profit above all else. And we start
That
working
was
on
a
some sort of
joke,
proper
by the way.
agreement.
I wasn't suggesting we split state of Queensland.
Nah, seriously though, I think we need a Quexit. I'm ready for that. I'd vote to split.
Quexit.
Quexit was suggested like the same week as Brexit. There's actually a
God.
hashtag going around called Quexit. And it was like,
But you
make
could
State
call
of
it, like-
Origin actually competitive again.
Okay, I resent that.
Sit down.
As a New South Wales supporter, I dislike the implications of that statement.
So you're a minority group. Got it.
Yeah, no, I would be hurt by a Quexit actually. My team would be further marginalised. I'm a vulnerable minority.
Get good first.
Check your Queenslander privilege, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's working great.
No, but like what
Guys,
I
I
was
reckon
saying
we need
about
to-
the
Can we seriously talk about football politics for a second? Because I reckon we need to implement affirmative action in the NRL. Like one Origin win in 10 years is terrible. I think we need to start giving New South Wales one win per series by default until they start to get on par with Queensland again,
It's
guys.
called referees.
Oh, it's a
What, you
fair
just-
point. Okay, yeah, never mind.
The video ref. This is the
We need to
problem.
be allowed to bribe one ref per series.
Just
I don't
for
know
the
what
viewers
you
who
think about
aren't
football.
keep seeing our satire and sarcasm and cynicism, we are kind of not suggesting that the refs are actually cheating. Just saying.
Dude, the refs are cheating though. Have you seen anything? No. Yeah.
and back
Reggie,
to
do
the
you
thing
have
that
strong
started
opinions
this
on the
though.
state of origin?
No, I don't know.
Sorry, Jesse.
You guys, I want to talk
Care about
politics and you just
sports.
keep going with the football.
Sports, though.
guys.
Queensland.
You jocks.
The only
Um,
sport I care about is Eurovision.
It's the first time I've ever been called that. Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be the same for me as well, Joel.
Like back to what started all this about, I don't know, we were discussing something about voters. I think that's one other positive, like perception-wise positive thing that will come out of a Trump victory is that people might start engaging with their political system a bit more, in that now they've seen that it can't be that rigged. If a man like Trump, who the establishment hates, who the media hates, can get in, it shows that, hey guys, our votes actually do matter. Whether to stop this or whether to get someone who actually represents our values in, we can actually do this. It's not all just a show put on by big business. I mean, it also proved some of that with how the Democratic candidacy went down and stuff like that. But hopefully it'll allay a little bit of the cynicism that surrounds American politics. And really politics in general, I suppose. America's not the only one suffering from this at the moment.
Well, I think it also shows, that voting has weight. If you don't vote, you lose a real voice rather than just like this abstract concept of voting. Like voting seriously changes in who's in the White House or who's in control of government, which is good. As in, hopefully more people vote. Hopefully get an 80% plus turnout next time.
I mean, on the
Yeah,
topic
great.
of, I guess, political engagement, the American Civil Liberties Union and Planned Parenthood have seen, quotes, an unprecedented rise in donations after Donald Trump's election. So that's on the
to Mike
progressive
Pence.
side of things. But I mean, that's not that's I guess not writing to your elected officials, but that is still a form of political engagement. So that's one example of it, I guess.
We could talk about how this election might affect Australia. That's been brought up a few times. I mean, I found it. Didn't Turnbull say pre-election that Trump was just like a basket case, and then after the election, Julie Bishop was like, "We will deal with anyone because we kind of have to."
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much been every world leader, but
yeah, you can't really do anything else.
Yeah.
And he was the joke candidate for like all of this right up till the moment where he won, pretty much.
Yeah,
A lethal joke character.
He got a lot of free media coverage just because he was Trump's an easy way to get views.
But
he says crazy things.
He was also like the joke candidate. He's always been a joke candidate.
He committed too far. He didn't commit enough like Trump did.
He wasn't going to build a wall. Like, that's where he lost. If Vermin Supreme was into wall building, he'd have the vote. He also doesn't demonize his political opponents. Like, that probably doesn't work out well for him. He just throws magic sprinkle dust on them.
Man, I've got to look up this guy.
Okay,
you'll be grateful you did, as in I look forward to your thank you.
Wait. Okay, is this guy a wizard?
Yeah.
Is he wearing multiple ties?
Yep.
Oh, and literally a shoe on his head. Okay.
Yep.
Guys, is the Harry Potter universe real? Is this like Arthur Weasley?
Supreme is known for wearing a boot as a hat and carrying a large toothbrush, and has said that if elected president of the United States, will pass a law requiring people to brush their teeth. He campaigned on a platform of zombie apocalypse awareness and time travel research. His education is Gloucester High School. His occupation is a performance artist, an anarchist, a presidential candidate, and an activist.
An anarchist running for government. That's amusing.
I think the whole point of his running for government is he's not going to actually get in, but he's just messing with the system by his very presence.
So at the bottom of the Wikipedia article, it's see also frivolous political party, political satire, surreal humor, tactical frivolity. Tactical frivolity.
Okay, that wins. Okay, that's great.
That should be our unit.
Like to deploy the tactical frivolity.
That needs to be our new unit motto.
Yes. Yes. Friday nights. BRB renaming some TV channels.
Also, did you guys hear that Pirate Party has a serious chance of winning in the Iceland election?
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, the
That's
Pirate
cool.
Party has always been massive in Scandinavia.
So, what's the naval policies of the Pirate Party?
Votes are good.
Finders keepers. actually
Is the
concerned.
Pirate Party in Australia campaigning in contrast to the Liberal Party's slogan of "Stop the boats"? Are they going for the steal the boats? Um, or
So one good, I mean, while we're completely off topic, because that seems to be our thing now. Well, I guess it's sort
so
of
is
on
Jesse.
topic in a way, actually. But like the thing where the refugees from Nauru are going to be going to America, at least some of them, potentially, if Trump honors
Yep.
the deal. That's pretty cool.
Is that still a thing?
Well, we don't know. We're waiting on America.
Yeah. Okay.
America's like
Good.
Australia is still committed to the deal, but it's up to whether Trump accepts or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate that it has to come to that, but rather see them settle in America than continuing to suffer in our immigration detention.
Hello. That reminds me how this
Do you
started.
guys?
We were discussing how the election will affect Australia.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So trade's the biggest concern I think at the moment for a lot of people, and
And
trade relations.
defense.
Um, Potentially. Um,
Well, both.
we probably aren't going to be end up on bad terms. I think we're going to be fine in terms of their relationship with US. The issue comes if Trump ticks off China and the Southeast Asian countries, because we get along well with them because we trade a lot with the Southeast Asian countries. Percentage-wise of international trade, we trade a lot more with them than US does, and US and them have some not so great relations due to mutual debts and embargoes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if they tick them off more, then through being mutual friends, we may have to choose which side we favour more than the other. This could be an issue.
Yeah, like both those things, like the trade and the defense, in a lot of ways are sort of down to viewpoint and um, in some ways safer now that Trump got elected because Clinton had already said she's going to um, push the South China Sea and Australia needs to take a side. So we would have had to choose between America and China, cutting off trade and creating an enemy where there is none. Trump has said he does not care. And so no longer, like, we can just keep trading with both now and not getting involved in the dispute that doesn't involve us. So in some ways we're better off. But again, if Trump does push a trade war with China or stuff like that, um, things are going to get a bit more tense, and we might have to start things. And depending on your viewpoint on power blocks and alliances and everything, if America, if Trump does pull out of a lot of bases and pulls out of, say, Japan and stuff like that, um, then that will change power balances quite a lot around Asia.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying on like on defense. I think we're actually better off compared to if Hillary's in, but trade could still be an issue. Trade's what I'm more worried about. I think defense we're going to be okay.
I mean, we're probably going to be okay
Uh,
anyway because no one really cares about us down here.
Yeah.
well, yeah, but there's also I think at least worldwide the can we please not have a war going on worldwide,
That'd
which
be
is good.
nice.
That's a good no. Well, it wars don't actually generate income. It's destruction of so many things that is never profitable. It's just you lose less than the other person and you somehow call it a victory. That's just kind of how it works. Um, yeah. So like I don't know. I'm not sure how well thought out Hillary's plan was with some of the stuff she wants to do. If it's a show of power or if it's something else.
I'd say show of power because that's kind of like that's sort of how America was going. They were sort of slipping in terms of global preeminence. China's getting towards the end of its industrialization. It's pretty ascendant. It's about equal with America now. and a lot of other countries are catching up, whereas America is starting to feel the brunt of the changing economy, where it can't get as much cheap labor and resources from not colonial enterprises per se, but similar idea, sphere of power, sphere of influence things and stuff like that. So basically, America was losing preeminence in the world, and how they were going to deal with that, it was sort of the question driving a lot of these conflicts. They didn't want to be soft on China, they didn't want to be soft on Russia, because to do so would it be to admit, hey, we don't have this place as the world's policeman anymore. We don't have the power and the authority to back these claims. China was openly defiant of them. Russia's been cautiously defiant
Russia.
of them. So it's like, I almost reckon if America had kept its current course, we could even have ended up in a situation where war would happen just so that America could continue to be primary in this global sphere of influence. Because that's an idea that's been thrown around by their generals and other things. It's an idea being explored in a couple of popular media things that like America is special. We represent the free world. We should not give up this position. We must fight to defend our place. Which I mean is a terrible idea as I see it, but that's what a lot of these disputes were over.
One of the main things that it makes sense for America to go to war would be that they've invested so many trillions of dollars into it and they need a return on it somehow. But I don't think they actually really want to go to war. You know what I mean? Like, even though they've invested trillions and trillions into it, I don't think they actually really want to use it. Or at least, sorry, there would be some that would, but the vast majority, I don't think would want to go to war.
Well, most people
I think
normally
it's quite
don't.
counterproductive.
But it kind of, sometimes it just ends that way. Like the Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage started the same. Neither power really wanted to, but the spheres of influence and everything had grown so much, they were competing for each other's profit, competing for each other's influence and everything. One had to, like, for both to continue to be the dominant power, they had to do something about the other one because they weren't looking to share. And they had radically different ideologies as well. In some ways, a lot like America and China do. And so that eventually led to war through a proxy state, like broken truces and whatever. Neither side really wanted it, but that's what had to happen because of global ambitions and soft imperialism.
So talking about the military, one of the breakdowns in the exit poll was U.S. military service, where the voter had done U.S. military service, and basically 2/3 voted for the Republicans and 1/3 voted for the Democrats. But if you haven't done military service, it's close to like 50-50.
So that's pretty common with other past elections too. That's a long-ish running, trait. Most military service are Republican voters. This is more of a party thing, not a Trump thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a global thing. Like military attracts right wing. It's pretty standard for right wing values and so forth. Generally, you'll find military leans to right wing wherever you are in the world. Whereas, like, education tends to be a lot more liberal, which is why I was surprised education levels were so similar in the American election. I was expecting a much bigger divide. Like Brexit was a pretty big divide, I think. I don't remember the numbers, but I feel like it was more than 52-48 or whatever it was for America.
Brexit was reasonably close in terms of the vote.
Yeah, but like in terms of the educated position?
Oh,
that's what I meant.
So, well, just on Wikipedia, it's not broken down in nearly as much detail as in our exit polls that we're looking at, but it was leave the European Union 51.89%, remain 48.11%. Which was a 72% turnout.
Something like that. I think the closest thing we'll be getting to one of those would be the Republic vote, because that comes up semi-regularly in Australia. Although doesn't really make much sense, but whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't change anything for us in essence. That's why no one cares,
It really
really.
doesn't. It's just a lot of working costs for no benefit. Like, actually no benefit.
In some ways,
Well, it's
losing benefit because it's
more of a
useful to be able
symbolic
to
benefit, I
override our
suppose.
president if we need.
Yeah,
Prime Minister
exactly.
Jesse.
Prime Minister, yeah.
Same
But
thing.
yeah,
Not really.
well, some countries
One
have
is a
both.
Republican thing, and one is a
Yeah, then.
Westminster system thing.
There's countries with both of them. But anyway, yeah, it's like I was saying, it doesn't really make sense because it removes the ability to keep the Prime Minister in check. Gough Whitlam is a great example, and it's just a lot of work for nothing. Plus, it makes it more difficult to, I was going to say enter the European Union, but I mean enter England anyway. Because it used to be, well, before Brexit, it was actually really, really handy for travellers.
That reminds me of an
Sorry.
interesting article I was looking at the other day. I didn't actually read it. I just because so many election
I didn't
articles.
actually read it.
Yeah, well, like I was up till about 4 on the election day, just reading article after article, and they just kept flooding in every couple of minutes.
There was
So eventually,
no
I just
shortage
started
of articles.
bookmarking them. But one was on how, from the German newspaper, from Spiegel, on how America is now shown that it can no longer be the leader of the. I don't think they said free world. I think that's the American term, but roughly the same idea that America can no longer be this champion. Whoop, someone's gone. This
Sorry.
champion of democracy and those things of liberal values, Western values, and stuff like that. Now is the time for Germany to step up, or for Europe to step up, but they meant Germany, which I found interesting. Of course, it's like it could have been an opinion piece. I didn't read far enough to see that, but I mean, it almost certainly was. It wasn't a news piece, but you get what I'm saying. It could have just been one theorist or whatever, rather than a public sentiment.
Mm.
But still, somewhat of an
Well, it's kind
interesting
of the
turn
point of
of
the
events.
European Union, though. The point of the European Union is to bring these European countries together to form an entity that, in economic scale, rivals, if not surpasses, the US or China. They're the big blocks of power, essentially. Because on its own, Germany's far smaller than China or US or Russia. But when you combine Germany, Italy, France, Spain, okay, you've got a few of these together now, Switzerland, kind of. You suddenly have an entity that has a lot of industry, a lot of people, a lot of resources that's quite powerful.
All right,
We
can
go
go
on.
on.
I was just going to say we've certainly seemed to have got quite a broad number of issues tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good.
We only got
I guess
derailed into sports once.
Yeah,
well,
I think
it's
that's
still
the first time
politics.
that's happened.
I think so.
But I think really for now, let's take a wait and see. In January and well, the 100 days after January, there'll be plenty to talk about then because really the result's done. He's he's going to be the incoming president. Um, it's now wait and see, and let's see how he actually goes at governing. So speculation kind of guess so far, really, in discussion.
Yeah, it's a story in development, and it will be for 4 years. And beyond that, really.
Yeah, and like a friend of mine raised the good point that yeah, the election's done now, and well, in her case, she wasn't happy with it, but but rather than trying to wishing the election was different or protesting in the street as people are doing or stuff like that. The election's done. It is what it is. Now we should be working to, like ourselves, working to shape the society we want to see, regardless of the policy or the government or whatever. We should be doing the activism, donating to the companies that we want, and engaging with politics further, stuff like that, to
Rioting in the
try and help that.
streets.
Yeah. And
Please
I mean,
donate.
if Trump is sincere in his let's get together, let's help me govern this place well, then rather than everyone complaining about this isn't what I wanted, get behind him and help him to govern this place well. You might get all you
I
want,
mean,
but
in
it's better than trying to do something, and doing what you can is a lot better than just sitting around complaining all day about how things are terrible.
yeah, well, in progressive circles, I have seen a lot of calls for unity and calls for sticking together and compassion and empathy and getting involved in the political process to um, just getting involved and motivated by the loss of, I guess, the loss of the Democrats. Um, so yeah,
All right. I think we've covered about all for the week, and those are some good closing thoughts. So,
No, I feel pretty good about that.
we had a reasonable discussion.
Just the main closing one for me would be that, it's great that more people are talking about politics and seriously considering who runs the countries. And hopefully that transfers over to more engagement with the public and more ownership of who's in power, not just blaming other people, but owning it.
and remembering all those who feel unheard. Um, like on the one hand, remembering the workers and other people forgotten by urbanization and globalization, even if they are white males, and on the other, ignoring your percentage and power as white males to remember those of other races and um, genders, to that they are also struggling just like you are, and that we should all work against this. We should all work together to better everyone's lives.